Picture this. It's a Friday afternoon in May 2026. Inside a packed, buzzing press room at the Etihad Stadium, the absolute most successful managerial decade in English football history just gets a closing date. Today, we're diving into the definitive explainer of Pep Guardiola's totally unprecedented career. We're going to map out exactly how he rewired the football you watch every single weekend. Look, we're going way past the headlines of his 17 major trophies at Manchester City, past all the endless Twitter debates, to trace the exact roots of the most influential mind in modern football.
You know, he walked into that 2026 press conference without his usual stack of notes, and he delivered just 3 sentences. But man, the world is going to remember this one forever. Don't ask me the reasons I'm leaving. There are no reasons, but deep down I know it's the right time. Nothing is eternal. It was a heavy, instantly historic moment that sent absolute shockwaves across the globe. But to really grasp why that press room went dead silent when he said those words, well, we have to rewind.
Okay, let's jump right into this. Here is our roadmap. We're looking at 5 crucial stages today: forging the tactical DNA, the Barcelona sextuple machine, the Bayern Munich laboratory, breaking the Premier League, and finally, the final European puzzle.
Starting right at the beginning with Stage 1, forging the tactical DNA.
To really find the root of his genius, we've got to ignore the modern headlines and those gleaming trophies for a second. We need to look at his deep tactical lineage. It all actually kicks off in 1984. Imagine a profoundly thin, 13-year-old kid from the sleepy town of Santpedor being driven to Barcelona's La Masia academy. He definitely wasn't the fastest and, well, he definitely wasn't the strongest. But as he broke into the first team in 1990 and then won the European Cup in '92, people started noticing his true superpower. He just knew exactly where to stand. He became the ultimate pivot, the deep distributor. He spent his entire playing career soaking in Johan Cruyff's philosophy before finally hanging up his boots in 2006.
And this is absolutely fascinating, because it perfectly illustrates the tactical mashup that defined his whole life. From Cruyff, Pep learned that keeping the ball was literally the best defense. I mean, if you have the ball, the other team simply can't score, right? But just before retiring, Pep actually flew out to Argentina and spent a mind-boggling 11 straight hours talking football with Marcelo Bielsa over a backyard fire. It was right there that the light bulb went off. He realized the missing piece was fusing Cruyff's possession with Bielsa's crazy intense, systemized high press to win the ball back the second they lost it. That legendary backyard meeting birthed his absolute obsession with juego de posición, or positional play. Think of it as a structural grid where players stand in highly specific zones to guarantee they always outnumber the opponent. It's not about just running around everywhere like crazy. It's about standing in the absolute perfect spot so the ball does all the running for you. This was the core concept he brought with him when he finally swapped his boots for a suit.
Moving right along to Stage 2, the Barcelona sextuple machine.
So fast forward to 2008. After just one single, admittedly very successful season managing the Barcelona B team down in the 4th tier, a 37-year-old Pep was pretty unexpectedly handed the keys to the main senior squad. And what happened next was just, well, it was historic. 6. Just let that number sink in. 6 trophies in a single calendar year, the legendary sextuple. In just his first 17 months in top-flight management, he scooped up La Liga, the Copa del Rey, the Champions League, both Super Cups, and the Club World Cup. He took those ideas he'd been brewing and scaled them flawlessly to the very highest level of the sport. Now, what's so cool about how he reached this level of dominance is that he completely ripped up the rulebook on player roles. Enter the false 9. Picture this: May 29, against arch-rivals Real Madrid at the Bernabeu. Pep tells Lionel Messi to start out wide, but then constantly drift right into the middle of the pitch. This simple move dragged Madrid's center backs totally out of position and just completely shattered their defensive structure. Barcelona won that game 6-2, absolutely destroying Madrid in their own house, all because of this one massive tactical masterstroke.
But look, achieving that level of perfection, it comes with a massive, massive psychological price tag. Pep's super rigid obsession with his system led to complete communication breakdowns with superstars. I mean, Zlatan Ibrahimovic famously only lasted a single season there. And honestly, even worse was the arrival of Jose Mourinho at Real Madrid. That sparked 2 straight years of relentless, totally exhausting psychological warfare in the media. The sheer mental drain of defending his club and his style every single day just completely emptied his tank. By 2012, totally burned out, he stepped away.
Which brings us to our third stage, the Bayern Munich laboratory.
So after a year off, just kind of decompressing and living in Manhattan, Pep turns up at Bayern Munich in 2013. He's ready for a totally new challenge in a completely different football culture, and he basically uses it as his ultimate tactical mad scientist lab. But his time in Germany leaves us with this huge paradox. It's a question that literally follows him in every single retrospective. Did he actually fail at Bayern? Keep in mind, he took over a squad that had literally just won the treble, so the bar wasn't just high, it was astronomically high. Looking back, his record in Germany is honestly a tale of two very different halves. On the domestic front, it was a total walk in the park. 3 consecutive Bundesliga titles, wrapping up the league earlier in the season than anyone ever had. But over in Europe, absolute heartbreak. 3 consecutive Champions League semifinal exits. The Bayern brass brought him in to conquer Europe playing his gorgeous brand of football, and on that one specific metric, yeah, he came up short.
The crucial takeaway here is understanding exactly why he came up short. Pep's fundamentalist possession model actually had a pretty glaring vulnerability. It really struggled against teams that defended incredibly deep, stayed super compact, and just relied on set pieces or lightning-fast counterattacks. We're talking about teams like Ancelotti's Real Madrid or Simeone's Atletico Madrid. They didn't even try to outpossess Bayern. They just tried not to lose, soaked up the pressure, and then, boom, hit him on the break. It was a fatal flaw, and he'd spend the next decade obsessing over how to fix it.
All right, let's jump into stage 4, breaking the Premier League.
Desperate to solve that exact puzzle, he touches down in Manchester in the summer of 2016. His mission? Translate his elegant possession game to the totally chaotic 100-mile-an-hour intensity of the English Premier League. Now, after his first season ended with 0 trophies, and the British press actually asking if he'd been found out, Pep drops a bombshell structural innovation, the inverted fullback. He starts telling wide defenders, guys like Kyle Walker, to actually run inside into central midfield whenever City had the ball. It was pure genius. It gave City an extra guy in the middle to dominate the ball, while instantly building a defensive wall to kill the exact kind of counterattacks that ruined him back at Bayern. And the results? Honestly staggering. In the 2017 to 2018 season, his Centurions became the first squad in the entire history of the Premier League to hit exactly 100 points. That kicked off an era of pure dominance, totally defined by this legendary, exhausting, heavyweight rivalry with Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool. I mean, remember 2019? City won the title with 98 points while Liverpool had 97. The sheer intensity of those matches pushed English football to tactical extremes we'd quite literally never seen before.
But even as he was casually shattering every domestic record in sight, that European ghost was still very much haunting him. Fast forward to the 2021 Champions League final in Porto against Chelsea, Pep makes a massive mistake. He starts the biggest match of his life without a recognized holding midfielder. Actually, scratch that, no Rodri and no Fernandinho. He admitted later he was trying to overload the midfield, but it just completely wrecked their balance. Chelsea snuck away with a 1-0 win. It was definitely his lowest point, and a brutal reminder of his terrible habit of overthinking things on the biggest stage.
Now, let's move to our final stage and see how this all builds up, the final European puzzle.
How do you bounce back from a loss like Porto? Well, you evolve. To finally crack the European puzzle, Pep took that inverted fullback idea and morphed it into the inverted defender. Instead of dragging a guy from the wing into the middle, he had a massive center back, someone like Aymeric Laporte or John Stones, step straight forward into the midfield when they had the ball. This created this crazy, super potent 3-2-5 attacking shape. It just completely smothered the opposition's defense while ensuring City literally always had 3 big guys staying back to stop any sneaky counterattacks. This huge tactical leap set up his ultimate 3-step master plan for the 22-23 season. Step 1. Ditch the false 9 completely and bring in a giant physical target man. Enter Erling Haaland. Step 2. Flawlessly execute that inverted defender system so they owned the middle of the pitch. And Step 3. Unleash this terrifying, perfectly balanced machine on Europe and finally grab that elusive treble.
And it all culminated in Istanbul on June 10, 2023. 5 minutes of agonizing stoppage time ticking away against Inter Milan. City is clinging to a 1-0 lead. You could physically feel a decade of pressure bearing down on him. There is this absolutely iconic photo from that exact night. Pep, literally down on his knees on the grass, his tie pulled loose, his head completely buried in his hands. It was this beautifully poignant, silent image of a guy realizing his ultimate European masterpiece was, finally, complete.
Looking back at this entire legendary run, it's amazing to think about his lineage. Marcelo Bielsa once said something so unbelievably humble about their famous 11-hour fireside chat. He said, Pep would have become Pep regardless of whether he had met me. I happened to be home that day. But honestly, the truth is that Pep somehow managed to compress two completely different generations of football philosophy, Cruyff's total ball ownership and Bielsa's ferocious structural intensity, into one single totally revolutionary career.
From that skinny kid in Santpedor to the man who suddenly closed his chapter in a Manchester press room in 2026, he literally rebuilt the tactical geometry of the sport. So, as we process his departure and everything he left behind on the pitch, we're really just left with one massive compelling thought. Will football ever see another mind quite like his? Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer, and we'll catch you next time.